Welcome back to the deep dive. Okay, imagine this for a second. You're running, say, a multi-billion-dollar traditional finance house. You've heard all the buzz about digital assets. You see the potential, right? And you're thinking, maybe it's time to dip a toe in, allocate even a small slice of your portfolio. But then, bang, you hit a wall. How on earth do you navigate, dozens of different crypto exchanges? How do you keep compliance happy? And crucially, how do you get the best price for a massive trade without, accidentally moving the entire market? It's what you might call the institutional crypto nightmare. So today we're taking a deep dive into this really fascinating world where traditional finance tries to tackle this problem head on. We're looking specifically at institutional prime brokerage. Our source material for this actually comes straight from FalconX. They're a major player in this space, and they detailed their whole approach. Our mission here is to really unpack what prime brokerage even means for big institutions in the crypto world. How does it try to simplify what is, let's face it, an incredibly complex and fragmented market? And why is it getting so much attention? Why is it fundamentally changing how big money operates in crypto? And just to set the stage, get ready for some pretty impressive numbers right away. We're talking over $1.5 trillion in trading volume handled, access to 94% of global digital asset liquidity. That's as of the end of 2024. Big numbers.
Okay, yeah, let's really dig into that. What's truly transformative here, I think, is how a platform like FalconX directly addresses those core headaches you just laid out. It's mainly that fragmentation, right, and the sheer operational complexity that institutions bump up against when they try to enter the digital asset market. So this deep dive, it should hopefully illuminate how a solution like FalconX aims to make that leap, which is a sophisticated one, not just sort of manageable, but actually efficient and secure for these major financial players. It's really about bridging two very different worlds.
And that fragmentation, it's more than just like an annoyance, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
For a traditional institution, I mean, the idea of trying to find deep liquidity spread across dozens of venues or managing separate accounts everywhere, trying to reconcile trades from all these different places for just one large order, it sounds exhausting.
It is. It's not just complex. It's a huge resource drain.
Yeah, think about the legal teams involved, the IT integration challenges, the compliance. Just the compliance side alone must be a nightmare. It adds up to a massive operational cost way beyond just, the trading fees themselves.
Exactly right. And that's precisely why this idea of a trusted and tailored solution, especially with what they call white glove support, isn't just some nice-to-have feature. For these kinds of institutions, it's an absolute necessity. Look at their metric, 24H notional trade volume, which, for anyone unfamiliar, that's basically the total value of assets traded in a day, often before leverage. It points to this constant, immense flow of activity. That kind of scale demands incredibly robust, always-on infrastructure and support that mirrors what they're used to in traditional markets, high sophistication, low latency. Without that baseline, honestly, the operational friction alone would probably stop broad institutional adoption in its tracks.
Right. And speaking of scale, FalconX makes this, pretty bold claim. Harnessing 94% of the world's digital asset liquidity. That's a huge number. How do they actually do that? Especially given how decentralized and, frankly, messy the crypto market can seem. Our sources say they use machine learning algorithms aggregating liquidity from over 70 different venues. 70. So when they talk about delivering a superior execution experience and optimal results, what does that really mean? Like in practice, for a huge trade from a big bank, what problem does it solve?
Well, this is where you see the real potential game changer for market efficiency. Centralizing access to that kind of deep liquidity is absolutely crucial, especially for institutional strategies, and particularly in markets as volatile as crypto often is. It actually raises a really interesting question. What are the unique operational challenges in just maintaining that connection, executing across 70-plus venues, each with its own API, its own latency quirks?
Yeah, I hadn't even thought of that maintenance side.
Exactly. So FalconX using machine learning suggests their system isn't static. It's constantly learning, optimizing, rerouting orders to find the absolute best price available at that moment. And critically, executing large orders without causing big market ripples. It minimizes what's called slippage.
Ah, slippage. Right.
Yeah, that gap between the price you thought you'd get and the price you actually execute at. For big institutional trades, even tiny slippage can mean millions in lost value. So reducing that fundamentally improves pricing, execution quality. It basically takes this kind of chaotic, often over-the-counter dominated landscape and makes it feel a bit more like a unified, transparent market.
Okay, so they've clearly put a lot of thought into solving the liquidity puzzle. But, as institutions know well, just having access isn't enough. You need the whole toolkit. FalconX breaks down their products into three main buckets: spot, derivatives, and financing. For spot trading, they promise seamless, efficient execution, and they offer different ways to trade, like RFQ, RFS.
Request for, quote, request for stream.
Right. So institutions can get precise, real-time prices for big custom orders. Or they can use API integration or even get like personalized white glove trading support for really specific needs. Then you've got derivatives. These are obviously key for helping institutions hedge risk and generate yield. And here's a detail that jumps out, especially for U.S. players. You can trade swaps with FalconX Bravo Inc., and they're a CFTC-registered swap dealer. That feels significant.
It absolutely is significant. We'll come back to that.
They also mention bespoke OTC derivative structures, so custom solutions for tricky risk management jobs. And then finally, there's financing, where institutions can scale returns with up to 5x leverage. They offer cross-portfolio margin and flexible loan options. That cross-portfolio margin thing sounds interesting.
Very interesting.
It means instead of needing separate collateral pots for every asset or every exchange they trade on, they can use their entire portfolio as collateral across different positions.
That's the idea. Dramatically increasing capital efficiency.
Wow.
Yeah. What's really insightful when you look at these three pillars together, spot, derivatives, financing, is how they let institutions approach digital assets, using basically the same sophisticated tools and risk strategies they use back in traditional finance. That CFTC registration for swaps you mentioned, that's not just like a footnote.
No, it feels bigger.
It provides this critical layer of regulatory comfort, familiarity. It's something traditional finance powerhouses absolutely demand before they commit serious capital to a new asset class. It ticks a huge box for them. And similarly, things like leverage, and especially that cross-portfolio margin capability, it massively improves capital efficiency. It lets institutions optimize their investments across all their different digital asset holdings in a way that's just incredibly difficult, maybe even impossible if you're trying to piece it together across fragmented retail-first platforms. It's really about bringing the full institutional toolkit into this still relatively nascent market, building the right infrastructure.
Okay, so the tech sounds impressive, the products seem comprehensive, but it's one thing to talk about features, it's another to hear from the actual users, right? FalconX mentions having over 600 institutions using their platform. Now, we've got a few quotes here. Nikhil Thakur, he's the head of finance at Figment. He calls FalconX a valuable partner in enhancing liquidity solutions and specifically points out how it improved their validator operations capital efficiency.
Important for infrastructure players like Figment.
Yeah, and he also highlights their 234/7 operation as showing dedication, which in a market that never sleeps is pretty crucial. Then there's Alessandro Bellata, portfolio manager at Fasanara Capital. He said, FalconX 360 is extremely comprehensive, streamlining crypto management with unprecedented operational and capital efficiency. He also made a point of praising the responsiveness of the team.
That human element again.
Exactly. And finally, Ari Paul, CIO and co-founder of BlockTower, he said he was extremely impressed with FalconX's ability to execute on their vision of bringing value-add solutions to customers.
You know, if you step back and look at these testimonials together, they really underscore this broader shift happening, don't they? It's a move away from institutions just sort of dabbling in crypto ad hoc towards needing these integrated, reliable, professional solutions.
Yeah, it feels more serious now.
Right. And while, okay, testimonials are always going to be positive, what's notable is that consistent drumbeat, operational efficiency, capital efficiency, responsiveness. These aren't just buzzwords.
Yeah.
These speak directly to the core pain points institutions have faced. It really highlights that even when you have a super sophisticated tech platform, that human element, the white glove support, the quick problem solving, it's still absolutely vital. Especially when you're managing substantial capital in a market that's dynamic 24/7. Trust and smooth operation are paramount.
And what about the team behind FalconX? This seems quite compelling, too. They weren't just, built by pure crypto natives starting from scratch. The materials say they were developed by experts at leading financial institutions, trading, and tech firms. So they're really operating at the intersection of finance and blockchain technology. And this is where it gets, I think, really interesting when you think about the future of digital assets.
Exactly. That specific blend, deep traditional finance know-how combined with cutting-edge blockchain innovation, that's what potentially enables them to build what they're calling the financial platform of tomorrow, today. Think about it this way. A firm that's purely crypto native might understand blockchain deeply, but they could potentially miss the nuances of, say, institutional regulatory requirements or the sophisticated risk frameworks needed, or the sheer performance demands of high-frequency trading desks at a major bank.
Right, different worlds.
And conversely, a purely traditional finance firm might really struggle to grasp the decentralized ethos, the rapid evolution, the specific tech opportunities within digital assets. FalconX's background, at least on paper, lets them bridge that gap uniquely. They're not just trying to port old systems onto the blockchain. They seem to be crafting solutions specifically designed for institutional scale, regulatory expectations, and the unique nature of this new asset class. In effect, they're building the missing financial plumbing that institutions need.
And they're definitely not standing still. We saw some recent news, didn't we? Like that June 4th, 2025 announcement about introducing something called FalconX Market Spot. Apparently, it gives real-time derivatives intelligence directly in Telegram.
Interesting delivery mechanism, bringing insights into existing workflows.
Yeah. And it's also hard to ignore the backers they have. The list of leading investors is pretty heavy-hitting. Excel, Adam Street, B Capital, GIC, Thoma Bravo, Tiger Global.
That's a serious list.
It really is. So putting it all together, these new tools, these big-name investors, what does that signal about where the institutional digital asset space is heading?
Well, those developments and partnerships, they're really powerful indicators, aren't they? They point towards exactly that.
Yeah.
The ongoing growth and, importantly, the maturation of this institutional space. That market spot thing, for example, it shows a push towards integrating real-time, genuinely actionable intelligence into channels people actually use day to day, like Telegram. It sort of democratizes access to pretty sophisticated trading info.
Makes sense.
And the caliber of those investors, it speaks volumes. These aren't, purely speculative VC funds throwing darts. These are major established institutional investors. They've done their homework, and they clearly see significant long-term potential in building out this kind of robust, regulated, scalable infrastructure for digital assets. It strongly suggests that the major financial players aren't just, experimenting anymore. They're seriously committed to building the necessary pathways for digital assets to become truly integrated into the mainstream financial system.
So summing it up, it really sounds like FalconX is positioning itself as this absolutely crucial bridge, helping institutions cross over into the digital asset world, not just by offering deep liquidity, but by providing these comprehensive institution-grade services that, crucially, speak their very specific language of risk, compliance, and efficiency.
Precisely. They're building the on-ramps and the guardrails. So thinking about that, considering FalconX's huge trading volume already, their reach across so many liquidity venues, the sophisticated tools they're providing, it makes you wonder what's the next frontier for integrating digital assets into mainstream finance. As more of these traditional powerhouses engage at this kind of scale using these kinds of tools, what new possibilities might open up? Or maybe what new challenges might emerge? And ultimately, what will it take to bring the next wave of institutional capital comfortably into this space? Something for you to ponder.